I'm Jim Collison, and this is the Wellbeing at Work with CliftonStrengths podcast recorded on November 19th, 2021. In this CliftonStrengths podcast, we'll look at the strengths, insight, and action planning items from Appendix 1 in the Gallup book, Wellbeing at Work, one theme at a time. And today's theme is analytical. If you're listening live, we'd love to have you join us in the chat room. There's a link right above me there. I'll take you to YouTube, sign into the chat room. And if you have questions after the fact, you can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jacqueline Robinson is our host today. She works as a Gallup Learning and Development Consultant and was the primary contributor to Appendix 1 in the Wellbeing at Work book. Jacqueline, always great to be with you. Welcome back.
Pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Let's dive into analytical. I could use some work on this one.
Me too.
What does it mean to be analytical?
Well, for our analytical folks, they tend to search for reasons and causes and, consider all factors that might impact the situation. They're really practical and prefer the realities of life over the mysteries of life. That's how I would interpret our
Yes.
analytical folks.
It's a superpower I don't understand. Let's talk about how it relates to the individual and then how does it relate to others?
So as an individual, they tend to find enjoyment in, getting into the details and can create simplicity out of complexity. That really is the power and edge that they bring to the table. And they probably get a lot of energy from reviewing information and, whether it's facts, data, resources, verbatims that
Mhm.
offer insight into personal or professional endeavors or interests. From the how it relates to others' perspective, I see someone high in analytical as being very adept at helping people consider all sides of the equation. And, they're really good at playing devil's advocate and ensuring there's reliable information to support the project, the initiative, or the responsibility that's being discussed at hand.
It's a theme that I've really learned to trust for my own benefit. So
Hmm.
early on,
Yeah.
seeking out people. I think sometimes folks like us, when we look at folks with high analytical, we go, they're going to think about it. It's going to slow things down. They're going to poke holes in it. It's actually become really, really helpful as we think about how it relates to
Yes.
others. I kind of crave it now when I'm doing some things and I find someone with high analytical to say, can you help me think through this? And
Hmm.
so it's one I've really kind of learned to appreciate and use often. So if you're in the community and you have high analytical, I do love to hear from you. Let's just put it that way. As we look at this theme of analytical in its thriving versus struggling, what do we see there?
If they're thriving, it's, they feel like that reliable source or conduit to themselves or others. This person might have the information they need readily available. And as a result, they can make well thought out and timely decisions. But when they're struggling, I think it's almost the opposite. So, without that relevant information, the decision making and the execution of tasks can become really hindered. And that could lead to frustration or impatience that not only affects them, but the team. And the team or others around them
Mm-hmm.
can see them as being, overly critical or even demanding.
Yeah, and on a team, I think the awareness of it is key in
Hmm.
this. Like any of them, right? It's key in that. Let's talk a little bit about in appendix 1, we break that down by the 5 categories in well-being. You've got one picked for us. Walk us through that.
I'm thinking social well being for this one. So, from a social standpoint, a game that involves strategy allows this person to connect with friends and family while simultaneously feeding their enjoyment of fact knowledge and problem solving.
What is that? What do you think that looks like from a practical standpoint? Put those
Mhm.
words, put some flesh on those bones.
Yeah, I think about it as game nights.
Mm,
Um, just planning a game night, whether it's every Saturday or every other Friday, whether it's with friends or family. But I think those that have analytical high, being able to play a game that involves
mm,
trivia, or I think about a game like Splendor, where you're
mm.
where you have to really think about your play, but also the next person's play is a way to just feel like you can have that social well-being piece, but also be feeding your desire for, analytics or insights or kind of getting into the weeds and going, okay, have I been looking at it from all angles so that I can win
Ah.
this next game?
Yeah, mind blown a little bit on that one. I never put the 2 together of a game night, someone hiding out. I always think of it in terms of figuring out problems at work,
Mhm.
and I this is man, this is so great. Again, looking at through this framework of well-being of thinking like, no, games have analytical processes in them. Maybe sometimes the more
Yes.
difficult, the better, right, in that, and providing those. I'll be honest, at the end of the day, I don't wanna think because I don't have it high. I don't wanna think
Mhm.
through that stuff, so having someone else think it through with me or doing some of those kinds of things can be kinda beneficial. Anything else you wanna add to that idea or that God, I love that, to that concept?
Yeah, I know. I think it's natural to go to that place of if they have analytical high, maybe they're fun
Mhm.
killers.
Mhm.
It's like let's just talk data and
Yeah,
information.
yeah,
But there is a way to really feel energized offsite or outside
yeah.
of the workplace, and
Play to
that's
those
one way.
themes.
You can just look at all angles the minute you do something that's about trivia or insights or strategy. And
Yeah.
sometimes we'll even think about someone that leads with strategic, but those high in analytical would get a lot of excitement out of doing something like that too.
Maybe even great in the financial well-being area when we think about thinking through some of those scenarios as well. We
Yes.
we have 4 other elements in there. Speaking of that, we have 4 other elements with
Sure do.
some tips in there as we go through that there in appendix 1, and would encourage you to use that as a tool with others as you're walking that through. So, with analytical, and again, this is my favorite part. It's quickly becoming my favorite part as we dig through this. How can we use it to help support others?
So if this person is a manager or leading a team, when employees are in that heightened emotional state for whatever reason, they're really good at bringing stability. By helping employees start to assess the situation through facts and reason, they can kind of ground the emotional state and bring in that pragmatic or practical state. And then from there, a new plan could be created. If they're on a team and they're just thinking colleague to colleague, they can help people by considering all angles of a work project just to ensure that all the bases are covered. So, for example, what data is present might be a question they're asking, or are there articles that are being referenced? Are they peer reviewed? If it's a design, has that design been tested? So they're going to be that person that can help really play devil's advocate and just um, poke holes for a reason, just to make sure that that person feels that they're on solid ground moving forward. And then as I think about them from an individual perspective, because they gather facts and information, they tend to be pretty confident in their decision making, and they're known as being credible, valued individuals in the workplace.
I so like that as we think about taking that and focusing it on others,
Hmm.
and I love that idea of helping people think through things, right? I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes we haven't always thought that through. That's been said a lot about me. Did you think that all the way through? Like,
Yes.
yeah, maybe not. No, I maybe even thought about the way I was going to start it. I just started it, right? And so I love that. Do me a favor, as we think about it from an individual standpoint,
Hmm.
because I often think we don't. How does, from a well-being perspective, what do you think an individual thinking about their own well-being, how can they use that to support themselves? Do you think? I mean, where could that kind of jump into to help themselves? Because I think they're almost we almost always think about it helping others or helping teams, but how
Hmm.
might that help themselves?
I think because they're really good at drilling down into the details, if something feels off for them in their life, there's this gut feeling something feels off.
Mhm.
Maybe just covering their own bases and looking at everything that they have on their plate. Where am I still missing information or data that's going to help me feel more confident? Some of that anxiety or inner turmoil or conflict might come from needing information. And
Mm,
maybe if they
mhm.
take a moment and they, let's just say they're going through their own chaotic environment. If they take that pause and just go, okay,
Yeah.
um, let me look at everything I have. Financially, am I doing okay?
Mm,
Socially, do I need more information there? Career
mhm,
wise,
mm.
I've got a lot of projects. Do I have what I need? That could help them feel more comfortable and confident moving
Yeah,
forward.
I like that. I like that. I like those
Hmm.
thoughts.
A little
In
pulse check.
appendix 2, we've got a framework. We've kind of built a framework to work our way through this. A couple questions and then some action items. When we think about this in terms, can you kind of walk us through that framework?
Mhm. So, first question is to ask yourself. How do I show the people most important to me that I care about them?
Mm,
Sometimes, if there's a lot of practicality, the barrier label we sometimes think about with analytical as being too critical or covering the bases. But how do I take a pause and just make sure that people know that I appreciate them? I think is a good question that someone high in analytical can ask. How do I show the people most important to me that I care? Ask your team members is our second question that we have in Appendix 2. So maybe a question is, how does the work we do every day have an impact on our communities?
mm,
Um, I think about that one because mission and purpose has been so high for people in the workplace. And someone high in analytical can really help people think about that and asking that question, how are we impacting our communities? Um, do they have the data and the facts or the resources that they can then bring and share with the team that helps them connect the dots of, oh, this is what
mhm.
we're doing and this is that impact that we're creating. And then we have our third element or I shouldn't even say element. We have our third piece of information that's in Appendix 2, and that is take action. So share individual goals so team members can provide support and encouragement. You can help people think about how to measure those goals if you have analytical high.
I like in that action item, I like it when out with folks with high analytical, and it usually can sometimes it gets paired with strategic, which is even better. When
Hmm.
they tell me they're in that mode, like,
Yes.
"Hey, I've thought this out," or I've been through this before and I thought it out before we did it, right? Tell me that. Let me know, right? From an
Hmm.
action item standpoint, let me know you've done that in the past. I like it because then I want to sit back and go, "Oh, okay, they've thought about this. Let me listen to what they really have
Yes.
to say." So I really think we've spent some time in Theme Thursday when we talked about this in coaching. We said sometimes it's good to ask for permission when you're sharing something. Can I've got an opinion. Can I share that with you?
Hmm.
I think sometimes folks with high analytical, and by the way, all the themes this is appropriate with, but just ask for permission. I've thought through this before. Can I share that with you? Instead of just spewing it out, right?
Yep.
And like, okay, I've thought about this, and you're going to listen. Let's just make sure that the other end wants to listen as well. Any other thoughts before we wrap this up?
um, I just think about them in this day and age as, going back to any, maybe you're using Google Maps, maybe MapQuest, whatever you use to look at maps. I always think about analytical as that street level view,
Mm,
and what
mhm,
a difference they can make in the workplace. And if you have analytical, what a difference you make to others around you,
mhm.
um, especially when there's just a lot happening. They can help just create simplicity out of complexity. And so use that, lean into it. We appreciate it. And yeah, that's
I
all
l-
I'd have to say.
I love that because the genius in thought is taking something complicated and making it easy. It's easy
Hmm.
to take something and make it more complicated, right?
Very, very much so.
Very easy to do
I
that,
think that's
people.
my talent. It's overcomplicating things.
The genius in it is taking something very complex and making it easy. So, folks with high analytical, thank you for your contribution that you do. You probably often don't get thanked for that, but thank you for those listening with high analytical. With that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths. We've got some great stuff for you there for coaching, master coaching, or if you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, or actually any questions, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. And join us on any social media platform just by searching Clifton Strengths. And we're everywhere. So you can't miss us. We're everywhere. I'm not everywhere, but we are everywhere. We want to thank you for joining us today. If you're listening live, we'll do some post show. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.